Some of the clients that I have seen recently, there's some very strict licensing conditions that they need to protect. If they were to be put into administration, their whole business is at risk and they could really never ever recover from that. But also from a reputational point of view, a lot of business owners, if something was to come up on like a risk watch, or if a supplier was to become aware that the ATO is looking at stepping in,
Yep.
they could cut off materials, they could be publicly embarrassed, that might get fed around to their customer base who then don't want to deal with them. There's a lot of things that need to be managed in the process, and the key to all of that is the speed element.
Yeah, you're right. And we've dealt with a number of businesses that have government contracts, and that's often the big one. Government contracts, and also, builders in certain states, their licenses are conditional upon them not having these sorts of things happen. And we've got one recently that I think you and I both know about. They cannot afford to have any of this hit the press because they've got a lot of government contracts. They've got a lot of goodwill in the business community, and I know with that one, for example, and this was obviously before you and I had met, that they had to do a big funding, and I know they had very good accountants in place. But probably the closest thing that set me up to do this is because I was a litigation lawyer, is the litigation side of it. But this is not accounting work, and we often see where there's long-term negotiations, and in this case that we're talking about, the very good accounting firm, they in terms of day-to-day accounting and advice and everything, it's been first class. Dealing with the debt collectors has been a bit difficult because it's not something they do every day, and as you and I know, they weren't able to get them into a payment plan, and it meant a big payout. The good thing is, at least now we're helping them to look and see if we can get some of the interest and penalties removed. But again, that's a situation where if any of this was to become public, then that would be not curtains for the business, but it certainly would be very damaging, and certainly damaging to a lot of the sort of government contracts that they have. And because there's a lot of people talking about small business restructuring and going all that, but many businesses can't do that, and many businesses shouldn't do that because it's not necessary. There's coming back to what we said, we can bring the ATO in, get them to agree to sit on the sidelines, continue to support the business, and then somebody like yourself comes in and gets the funding that we need to get things out the other side.
Absolutely. And this is something that I speak to our accounting team about regularly. And there's different layers of what we do because, of course, we can look at full consolidations. But if there's an opportunity to get the interest and penalties remitted, then the client's instantly better off. And if we only need to raise a certain amount of funds, then their cash flow is better. You can get the interest and penalties wiped off or enter them into payment arrangements. If they need to do a more drastic step, then we can absolutely support on that side as well. But I think a lot of people are too quick to take that step and not realizing that with some clever negotiation, some clever funding, positioning it right with the right lenders first time, this can all be solved in, what would you say, Michael, 2-3 weeks maximum?
Yeah. We say 4 to 6 weeks because we need to fit within the ATO, but we do them. A lot of them are much shorter than that, and you're right. And I think one of the things too, you talk about the level of funding. The other thing around it too is that, I'll use as an example the one that you and I are working on together at the moment. And through what you did, you were actually able to get the funds to pay everything, including the interest, and that's brilliant. But what's going to happen now is they're going to get some working capital they didn't expect to have when we get the interest back. And that's what I often say to a lot of the people I'm dealing with is, still borrow the full amount if that's what they're wanting to do. And let's give them a nice surprise afterwards by getting them a refund from the ATO, which they can then put into, and I know in this business they can use it to sort of help grow the next contracts. So it's really, a big win-win because the ATO's happy, they're out the other side. If there are grounds for them to remove some of the interest and penalties, they don't do it for fun, and they don't do it just because you pay out the debt, because they impose the interest to create a level playing field between businesses. But if there are grounds and reasons for that, then yes, they will do that, and they do that every day of the week.